Here we are, week 2.
Week 2 with Joseph Weider's Thruway to Beauty program. Welcome, I'm Denise Foy.
Kathleen Morris.
Please join us on our weekly journey by subscribing below. Let's go ahead and get started. So Kathleen, I wanted to see, how did your week go last week with the new exercises and learning about posture?
I cheated.
How?
I love that look. I cheated. I loved week 1 because posture is something that all of us need to work on. As a professional, I talk about it constantly. So I chuckled because I felt like my sitting posture was greatly improved.
Yeah.
I was much more aware of that. I'm short, so I always have to try to stand up taller, so that one was kind of a given for me.
Yeah.
The reason I say I cheated is this, and this is where you and I are going to be a little different, is that I already exercise. And I already exercise 4 days a week and fairly intensely.
See, I don't do exercises.
That's where you and I are going to be different.
Yeah, and it's not my daily routine or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I did miss a day, and I'm not even really sure if you're supposed to exercise every single day and do the same thing every day. Is
Yes.
that the suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I missed one day. I know. I just got too consumed with a project that I'm working on.
Well,
so I need to make priorities.
We are projects, and so this is
Yeah.
going to be interesting, right? Because this is the constant struggle of everybody in a program like this, is consistency
Yeah.
and persistence. What I usually recommend and used to recommend when I was a trainer is that we're aiming for A minus to A in what we're doing. We don't need to be absolutely perfect, but we consistently need to be good. So if on the first week you did 6 out of 7 days, I think that's pretty darn good.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's, especially coming from a place where you don't exercise.
Right. On week 2, we're going to learn about calories and what that means, dieting and exercising, and how to improve certain specific areas of your body for contouring. He said a suggestion is to take one of the most unflattering photos of yourself and to keep that image before you, as well as your mental image of where you want to go, and think of them before you do your exercises and before you eat.
So visualization with a little help.
Yeah. He says that then you wouldn't be tempted to have one of those pesky little snacks that put on unwanted poundage over a longer period of time. So that would make sense. He says that you can safely lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. If you're overweight, you'll probably lose a little bit more, a little bit on the front end of the diet, but then once you start to
Regulate.
yeah, then you'll start to lose it a lot lower. So that makes sense. Yeah, and he also mentions that you should weigh and measure yourself once a week, preferably upon arising, and at the same time every day without clothes. And then he said you would want to adjust your caloric intake based off of what the
Based on
scales
your
show.
progress.
Yeah.
So there's some consistencies in there. We have to remember that Joseph Weider was he's the godfather of bodybuilding. So he's going to be used to programming. We have 12 weeks we're going to go through. So to weigh and measure once a week will follow our progress. You want to be consistent with daytime and how you measure yourself so that you are true about the measurements that you're making, whether that's weight or tape measure.
Yeah. And he also has calories needed to maintain normal body weight, and it goes by your height and your age categories, and that will determine how many calories that you need to consume in a day. So I never knew that it was based off of your height and your age, although I was aware that that could be a determining factor. You know, they say the older that you get, the slower your metabolism
Sure.
become. So that person at 4'8" should have 1,360 calories a day, which is nothing. I mean, that would be really hard. If you want to lose weight, then you take that number based off of that chart and you subtract 1,000 calories from that. So that person would only be able to consume 360 calories a day, which I think is quite
That is
crazy.
actually unhealthy. So
Yeah, but he does suggest not to go below 1,000 calories a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the take home from that one, because when we look through the program, we want to look at what was happening then and how we deal with now. I don't think anyone would argue that we tend to be a little more excessive now. So consistently across the years when it comes to dieting and nutrition, daily caloric intake is usually going to be recommended for an adult somewhere between 1,200 and 1,600 calories. And he's right in there. He's right in there at 1,400. If you want to lose, you need to you consume less than that, but still in a healthy way. His version of doing it in a healthy way is what you choose to eat. I think most of us are a little astounded by 1,400 calories or 1,200 calories because it seems so little, but that's because in this day and age, we tend to be a little more generous in what we consume as a regular habit. When in actuality, dietary recommendations are quite a bit less than what we usually do.
He says something that I find quite shocking, because I know that losing weight is not, it's not just about calories. There's a very mental component to it. Week 2 is kind of scaring me a bit, if I'm being completely vulnerable, because like the thought of dieting and going through the weight loss process is very daunting and scary to me. So I get very nervous about going through this program, but I'm really excited about it too, because I've been on the planet for 43 years and I've struggled with this for so long that it's time that I do something about it and I try to overcome those thoughts about myself. But some of the things that he says is, if you've been the victim of compensation eating, stuffing yourself on sweets and rich foods because you were unhappy or felt lonely or unloved, substitute this kind of thinking. Those little goodies are a moment on the lips, but a lifetime on the hips.
Love that one. It's true though.
Yeah, but it's not like you can snap a finger and say, okay, well, I'm not going to think about any of that stuff anymore. Like all the psychological components of it, you can't do that. Like if you're not feeling loved or if you feel lonely, he says, I'll never be lonely again once I've become the woman I want to be. So you're supposed to say that to yourself like a mantra. Love comes to those who are lovable, and stay that way. I'm not even really sure what that's supposed to mean.
I think as we work through the program, we're going to see some things that are very interesting. And what's very interesting is then versus now.
Yeah.
Okay. And fun can be had with looking at what was happening back then and how people dealt with it back then and how people perceived themselves back then compared to now. There are some things in the Thruway to Beauty that are very applicable and current today,
Yeah.
and actually accurate and true. And then there's the perception of how that's applied because of where we were socially in the 60s. And I think that's the fun part of saying, hey, we were here in the 60s, but this is where we are now. And I think in the 60s, there was a pressure for women to measure themselves socially and whether or not they were alone or had companionship. And that was that back then. That's not necessarily the way it is right now.
Some of the things that he talks about with calories, and just as a refresher for those of you who already know, but a calorie is a word that's used to describe the amount of energy which foods give the body once it's been eaten and digested. So thus, if you take in more food than your body uses each day and energy, then fat is stored and gradually up goes the scales, and vice versa.
Sure. So it's energy. So we manage energy by using it or not using it. If we don't use it, we store it. If we use it, it goes away. Say right now that, again, we are talking about the Thruway to Beauty, which is done by Joe Weider, who has a background in fitness and bodybuilding. So when you look at his basic diet recommendation, and we would recommend that you actually read the diet and follow it. So the dietary training, again, it's going to happen every week, ladies. It's going to happen every week. It's how do you bring into your body the fuel that you need that's going to produce what you want. And we're talking about it in this day and age too. It's how much and whether or not it's of quality. This is just their version of it, which is not that far off. It really isn't.
Yeah.
From where we are right now. I picked out my favorite do for losing weight because I think it's absolutely hilarious. He says, I quote, "Do read a new book once a week, not only for your own enjoyment, but also so that you will have a subject of conversation with your friends besides your diet."
That's very important.
Perfect.
Let's get started with our workout program. I'm gonna go put on my leotard.
See you then.
As you look at this chart to assess what is the quote-unquote desirable weight for women, please note that in order to tell your frame size, you will need to measure your wrist. By pulling the tape snug at the smallest circumference, the measurements for a small frame is 5.5 inches, 6 inches is medium, and 6.5 or more is large. Here are the screenshots of this week's booklet. Please take the time to read them at your leisure. Definitely read the How to Get the Most Out of Your Exercises section to learn more of what Joseph Weider suggests. Number 6 is our favorite.
So what we'll note this week is we are going to build on last week. So there are going to be a couple things that are reminiscent, 2 things that are a repeat, and then some new things. Okay? So the first one is all about posture, because that was posture week last week, right? Very simple exercise to begin. We're simply going to put our hands on our hips, and then we're going to pull our elbows back together so that we're squeezing our shoulder blades together. And yes, our chest is going to be elevated, and we're simply going to squeeze our arms together and then relax. Squeeze our arms together and relax. Squeeze and relax. And we're going to do that 12 times. What that does is it opens up the chest, it strengthens the shoulder blades, bring them back, and it lifts us up. So reminiscent of last week, we are going to do leg lifts. Would you like to get on the mat, or shall I?
I'll get on the mat.
Okay, so remember the on the lips to the hips thing? This is what we're going to work on. So Denise is simply going to take her top leg and she's going to lift it straight up. You could even point your toe if you wanted to be ballerina-like. And then bring it back down. Up and down.
Go as far up as you possibly can.
That's right. So important would be also to give yourself a little bit of support so you can stay as straight as you can. Make sure that your head feels comfortable and that you're really trying to concentrate here. 12 of those. Exercise number 3, that's for our chest. It is a crisscross exercise. So Denise is going to take the books. I'll demonstrate without books. We're going to take something in each hand. We're going to bring both arms out in front. We're simply going to cross over, come back, straight arms, cross over, come back, straight arms, cross over, come back, over, come back. Really concentrating here to work on the chest.
This one's hard.
Yes. One little key on that one, we want this to be as much about the chest as we can. So your arms need to be at shoulder height. You're going to try not to be a football player. You're going to try to be a ballerina. 15 times. Exercise number 4. So we want to think of long neck. Okay. So the exercise is simply to, in a nice controlled manner, look all the way back until you feel a stretch in the front of your neck, and then control your head all the way forward till your chin touches your chest, and repeat. And we're going to do that 15 times. Exercise number 5 is a basic squat. If you look at the picture, as you can see when you look at the screenshots, that is an interesting 1960s squat. I dare anybody to do that squat. In this day and age, we would work a basic body weight squat, which is about our midsection and our legs, but mostly about our midsection. The best way to learn how to do a squat is to imagine that you're in a very dark room, you can't see a thing, and you need to sit on a chair that you can't see. So we're going to keep our head and our chest up, we're going to stick our butt out, and we're going to try to sit on the chair, and then we're going to come back up. Joe would like your arms out in front, so we're going to do that. So it's head up, chest up, bring your arms out in front, pretend I can't see the chair, I can't see the chair, I can't see the chair, sit on the chair, and then come back up. If you can do that easily, you're going to keep your heels on the ground and try to go lower. Heels up will make this very definitely an exercise for the legs. heels down will make this about midsection, which is more about posture and core and strength and safety. So we've kind of changed how we do the squat now. That's safer for your knees, safer for your back, safer for your legs. We're going to do 12 of those. Exercise number 6. Joe talks about rounded arms. So we're going to grab our books or weights of whatever choice, tuck your arms into your side. You're simply going to bring one arm up, and then as you bring it down, the other one goes up. So it's a smooth, coordinated up and down, and you want to feel this one in your upper arm to create a shapely shape to the upper arm. That's going to be 15 per arm. Exercise number 7 is a repeat. It's a repeat from last week. Again, working on the hips. We're going to bring the leg up, out in front, circle it back down. You want to keep the foot a couple of inches off the ground. So up, forward, circle it back down. Good. 15 per leg. Nicely done. For a flatter tummy, we have a scissor leg lift. Okay? So, thinking all abs, we're going to bring a leg up, leg down, other leg up. So think about the exercise we did for the upper arms with the books in hand. This is the same thing for your legs. When one leg goes up, the other leg goes down, nice and smooth.
Yes.
Thinking ballerina, we've got calves. So it is flex, relax, flex, relax, flex, relax, flex, relax, 15 per leg. Okay, the final exercise, number 10, is the double knee to chest. Again, an abdominal exercise, so press your back into the mat and feel like you're really working here. You're going to straighten your legs out. Bring both knees in.
He says to do it really quick.
Energetically. Do it energetically. We'll do 12 of those. We'll do 12 of those. Excellent. So those are our new exercises for the week. So if you have any questions about the number of repetitions, Joe has a little guide on the back page that tells you how many repetitions to do. We've got numbers, we've got arrows. Now, the nice thing about this is if you see where the arrows are pointing, that is the area of the body that we're concentrating on and trying to help. And he says if you have some areas of your body that you don't like quite as much as others, do more of those. So, for example, you would repeat exercises 7, 8, and 10 for your hip area, ab area, another round or maybe another 2 rounds if you want to really concentrate on that section of your body.
Thank you all for joining us for week number 2 of Joseph Weider's Thruway to Beauty program. What we have in store for next week is that we will learn about skin and complexion, and then we will also learn more exercises to assist in this area, and probably with posture and all that too. That seems to be his thing.
He's a builder. He builds week to week. Perfect.
Thank you all for joining us. We are the Thruway Beauties, and we'll see you next week.
Check you in.
Bye.